A to the K.
To the K.
To the K.
Welcome to the A to the K Wrestling Show. Welcome to Push or Flush. This time we are talking the Attitude Era. It's a segment voted for by you, beautiful people. Obviously, people love the first one so much.
It'll be a
heartbreaking
clamoring. It'll be a heartbreaking one. This.
It is.
We both have a lot of love for the Attitude Era.
Yes, we do.
Hell, it's what we grew up in.
It is.
Kind of.
Yeah.
You started with the Golden Era, but still.
Yeah. But yeah, so for anyone who didn't see the first episode, the purpose of this is we're going to get two wrestlers and we have to decide which one deserves a push and then ultimately which one we have to flush.
Essentially, it's fuck, marry, kill, isn't it, really?
It is kind of, yeah. But some other podcast did my version of what I was going to do for that. So didn't want to be trying to rip anyone off, so we had to change it. But I think the disclaimer you put last time when we did this is we're not really saying we want anyone to like.
Yeah, this isn't
I
like.
suppose it's not
we
much
hate
of a
something
disclaimer because this is from back in the day as opposed to now.
Yeah.
But we were like, we don't want anyone to lose their jobs or not.
Yeah,
We're not really
true.
trying to
Yeah.
get anyone fired.
The other one was quite recent, so it seems like I hate this guy, which was not what we were going for. It
Yeah.
was like you have to make a tough choice. So
Exactly.
these are respectable choices all round. I haven't seen them yet, but I assume that's the case. It's not like you're going to me. Well, do we push Val Venus or I don't know. Like, is he in there? Val Venus in there?
That's fine. That one.
Choppy.
Chopper, the pee. But yeah, so you'll find there's some interest. Like I wanted to keep it a good mix. So you've got proper main event levels, which will come later in the choices. But you've also got some of the guys who maybe could have gone on to be a main event if they were given the chance to be pushed.
So sometimes you go, it might be an unorthodox one, but I could choose to push somebody because I feel that they could have gone
Exactly.
on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll get into all the nitty gritty of it, but we'll start off with one of the lighter ones, I think. So kicking off, choice number one, right? We've got Goldust or Vader, right? And the reason I put these two together is these are two guys who felt like they could have been on the cusp of the main event at certain points, but for whatever reason, just never seemed to get there.
Okay, right. This might have to merit some discussion because I feel like you're going to go different directions than me.
Okay.
Goldust is my push,
Okay.
and mostly because, I'll be honest, I don't really get Vader. I feel like this is hard for me
You
to
got
admit.
Vader?
I feel like a lot of people like have a lot of love for Vader. I feel bad almost admitting this, but I don't get it.
Yeah. So, to be fair, this will maybe surprise you. I'm not going to go with Vader, right?
Okay.
So the thing with Vader is he was so agile for a big man, right? But I kind of think, and he was a bigger deal in Japan. I don't know whether that was just the way he was presented, and obviously he had like the big fucking mask and all that in Japan, and he just seemed like even more of a badass. I'm not too sure.
Was the mask bigger than it is there?
Oh yeah, so he had like a fucking helmet thing as well on top of it that he then took off. But Vader was a big deal in Japan. The thing is with Goldust is, pun intended, it was Goldust, right?
Yeah.
It was such a good gimmick. It was so controversial for the time.
Oh yeah.
But it felt like something with a bit of tweaking could have definitely been like main event.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think he always had an atmosphere about him, and like you say, that it felt like a big deal. Like, this is a weird comparison. Maybe not as weird as I think it's going to sound, but like almost Undertaker-esque the way his entrance was, and the way it was like almost freaking you out kind of thing in a very different way. Yeah, but like, do you know what I mean? Like his music, it got in your head, and it was kind of like intimidating in a way. His character was mysterious in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like, it kind of had a lot of Taker vibes in a very different way.
Well, that's it.
Like you say, I think with a few tweaks, he could have been like such a. Well, you know what? Respect to Dustin. Like, he was a fucking big deal, and he was a long stay in WWE for the right reasons. But main event wise, he definitely could have been there.
I think so. I think he was very much a shock value gimmick, wasn't he? Yeah. And he was meant to kind of rub people the wrong way, especially at a time where people were less accepting of like people who wore like drag and did all that. Like, he was brought in for that. Well, the gimmick was made for that reason, was to get a reaction. Yeah. But to your point, if they would have tweaked it a bit to just make him more eerie and sinister.
Yeah. Sadly, they moved to the other direction and they made it more comical, like with the
which he still killed.
No, it was funny as fuck.
Yeah,
he
did. But like
after he got electrocuted or something, like
that might have been. But he killed it. Did like him and Booker T and like all the comedy stuff that he did. Like, he was fantastic. So he had all the chops, but I feel like they could have done something a bit more eerie with him.
Yeah.
That moved.
I would have been so intrigued by them moving into the eerie side more than they did.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised we can both agree on this.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I thought you'd be a big Vader guy.
Yeah, I like Vader, to be fair. And, him and Bam Bam are like the two guys you think of when you go, fucking hell, he's agile for a big man. It's like Vader, and obviously, apparently, he's a lovely dude as well. But I don't know, I feel like...
Can't say that about Bam Bam.
I feel like his ceiling was his ceiling. I don't think he could have gone much further, but that's why I want to put these two on, because they're two fans' favourites. The two fan favourites, but at the same time, I thought it'd be a good matchup.
Okay.
But
so first one,
Goldberg.
Okay.
Goldberg? Goldust.
No, not again.
No, Goldberg. Goldust and Goldust. Which takes us on.
Goldberg just interfering in our show as well. I'm next. Like, no.
Which again, so it takes us on to the second choice. And again, this isn't more towards the main event scene, but people that basically could have got there maybe, right? So it's Al Snow and Hardcore Holly, right? You may remember that they tried to get there with Hardcore Holly at one point in time, but with Al Snow, they had him come in with like the help me stuff and the crazy thing, and then they sort of transitioned him a little bit more into like a zany comedy character as well.
I shouldn't really put like personal opinion in this, but I would push Snow, and that's purely down to the fact that I'm like, from what I've seen of the stories over the years, Hardcore Holly was a bit of a cunt.
Yes.
And I think we all remember the infamous match with Brock Lesnar, where Brock Lesnar put him in his fucking place because he was trying to be a cunt and haze the new guys.
Well, he tried to sandbag him, didn't he? And Brock was like, all right, sandbag me.
His fucking career instead.
Fucking drop you on your neck then.
That's your Brock Lesnar style.
Yeah.
Like, now you are a sandbag.
Well, exactly.
So, I don't know, just from the way he operated with stuff like that, like, I understand the culture back then, and it was hazing the rookies and stuff like that, but it was like, I don't know, he just seems to have a shitty attitude. I don't know, like, even some of the people that everyone loved, because it wasn't there one of the ones from Tough Enough that Eddie, Benoit and him all just decided to chop the fuck out of in the Royal Rumble rather than actually throwing him out.
Yeah,
like, so I mean, they were being cunts as well. Let's be honest.
Let's be fair. He tried to fucking break Kurt Angle's arm, didn't he? It was like,
oh, was it him who put Kurt Angle on the
Daniel Puder, wasn't it?
Puder. Right side. I forgot about that. But as a group of people ganging up on him and legitimately chopping the fuck out of him, like they were all being a bit cunty there. So I'm not like saying like, he's the only one who was a bit of a cunt back in the day. But I don't know, Al Snow just seemed to like embrace whatever they gave him and fucking, like you say, he got over all the stuff with like head and all that kind of, like you say, the help me stuff and all that.
Yeah.
And again, they could have leaned into his character work so much more and made him such a big deal. Yeah, and sadly they just missed the boat on it.
Well, again, I don't want to.
And he's still a fucking big deal now. See, he's fucking jacked.
He is jacked. Like, again, I don't want to put the personal things. Like, obviously we've had him on the show, so it's a bit of a bias there. Like, there's a reason we wanted him on the show, because we like him. But for me, again, it's that slight tweak of character where you could have made it less hokey and more sinister. Do you know what I mean? That's all it needed for me.
Yeah.
And obviously, don't get me wrong, again, similar to what we were saying about Goldust, like when they put him with Steve Blackman, there was like head cheese and all that. Fucking loved it. You know what I mean? Like, he's been involved. Like, you
can enjoy the comedy. So I think this is probably going to echo quite a lot over the Attitude Era, where they decided to go funny rather than serious with a lot of stuff, and you wonder what would have happened if they had gone the other way.
Well, I mean, it's not always a bad thing either, but I definitely think that, like, he's done comic books now, hasn't he, Al, of like his character, and I feel like he's more like a darker, more sinister thing in there as well. And it's like that's where the character could have gone. Yeah. But obviously we were guests on a Cheap Pop Wrestling's show, weren't we? They did a segment called That's Not PG, and we taught him basically some of the stuff Al Snow was involved in. Yeah, like with fucking Pepper's dog and all that. You know what I mean? Like, it was mental stuff. But for me, when he was like the blonde Al Snow would help me on his head and like unhinged.
Yeah. That could have been the one.
That was the one.
So we agree. Al Snow is all getting the push, which is ironic because wasn't Hardcore Holly's theme music How Do You Like Me Now?
It was. Yeah.
We don't
actually. But yeah. So okay, interesting. We're agreeing so far.
This is not a good segment.
Let's step this up a little. Owen Hart or British Bulldog. Right, and obviously it's a very sad one because obviously both of them have lost their lives way too soon before they could have gone on to achieve some of the biggest things. But neither of these guys were world champs. Obviously British Bulldog has obviously got a bit of sentimental value for us. Owen Hart, obviously part of the Hart family, also sentimental there.
Look, this is gonna. I fucking hate you.
I know. Right? Sorry.
it's always going to be the British Bulldog, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I take the sentiment away from it, the fact that he's a local lad, the fact that we just, he was the one we could sort of identify with, probably not the right word, because I'm sure someone's going to point out that we weren't jacked or a wrestler, so how do you identify them? But he was our northern British guy, wasn't he? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you watch wrestling, you go, see, I can make it in the WWE. We didn't, but taking all that aside and trying to put that. Because I really want to say British Bulldog. I want to make that very clear right now. I'm going to say Owen.
Okay.
Because I feel like he had just as much talent in the ring, but considerably more character to him.
Okay. See,
I'm trying not to be disrespectful.
Yeah. This is fascinating to me because I've flip-flopped on this so many times, right?
It's so difficult.
When I WhatsApped you last night, it was like I've gone pretty, like I was talking about this one because I keep running it through my head, right? And I don't know whether I think the opposite to you.
Really? Because I feel like Owen probably could have ran with the whole character and mic skills side of things better.
Well, he
not to say Davey was a slouch, but
like I think of it as like the main event look. Like who would I put in the main event, right? And it pains me to say this because I fucking love Owen, right? I don't know whether Owen would have been a main event guy.
Okay.
And it hurts to say he could have been, but like he did the stuff with like I'm not a nugget and all that, but he was never really like the promo guy. He was a better promo than Davey to a degree, but character wise, I feel like Davey's like a Drew McIntyre.
Yeah,
he didn't need to have say much.
I take your point.
He had the size, like, it was intimidating.
That's a very solid point because even when he came back in the early 2000s, like all he had to do was walk out and fucking wreck people.
Yeah.
So you're quite right. He didn't need to fucking.
So I feel like for the main event, I could maybe have seen Davey being there more than I could Owen, which is why I've been deliberating on it so much. But I
just feel like if they'd have found the right gimmick for Owen, he would have ran with it better.
Well, I've not made my choice yet. Right?
Okay.
But this is why I've been flip-flopping so much, but I kind of disagree with what you're saying, but I kind of also want to pick Owen over Davey because I think Davey would have maybe done a better job in the main event, but at the same time, we got to see him for a longer period of time, and he still didn't get there. Whereas Owen had that character transition a little bit before. Obviously, he had to do the Blue Blazer shit and all that. When he was like, part of the nation and things, he started to show. And part of me thinks, could he have been a bit like a Kurt Angle?
Yeah.
Could he have kind of found his charisma?
Yeah.
And leaned into it a bit. So I kind of feel like from what we saw of the pair of them in their careers, Davey felt like a better fit. But that's because we didn't get to see Owen.
I feel the problem Davey could have had, and I know this is purely speculation for the sake of this sake of this segment, is that I think WWE would have had to try and change his gimmick for the main event scene because they couldn't have kept with the British Bulldog stuff forever, like quintessentially British being the thing. I feel they would have tried to change his gimmick to something else, and I feel like that would have been the danger of going, this didn't work.
Yeah. Well, they kind of did that a little bit.
I don't think they'd have wanted to put the British Bulldog to the top. You know what I mean? I think they'd have had to. I think they'd have wanted to change him, and then you get the likes of us as fans going, I prefer British Bulldog.
But when he came back and he was in the jeans and stuff, and he was like with the Mean Street Posse, it just didn't work. And I think it was for that reason. It's like we knew him as a British Bulldog. He was like the pride of Britain.
So he was almost a curse of his own sort of success in that sense because people didn't want him to change, and I think WWE would have wanted him to change to get to the main event thing. So I feel like he would have always run into that roadblock, whereas no one would have been that upset if they changed. I mean, they changed on to the Blue Blazer. Yeah. So I don't think anyone had been upset with a gimmick change. You know what I mean?
No. But I think, it's obviously what a travesty it was for Owen to be taken from us so soon. But I think before he went back to being the Blue Blazer, because ironically he didn't want to be part of the Attitude Era because he just didn't fit with his family ethics and all that kind of stuff. But like he showed some potential when he was doing the stuff with like the Nation and all that, where it was like maybe he could. And we just never got to see it. So part of me thinks if he was given the chance, he could have been like a Kurt Angle. He could have been, because he had the in-ring chops by far.
Oh, yeah.
But it was just that other bit that was missing. But yeah, so
choice, man.
I'll have to go with Owen.
Okay. Interesting. So we both managed to agree on this.
Okay.
That is surprising.
Can we get a clean sweep here? That
maybe.
It's so unlike us. So the next one to talk about former tag team partners, Test or Albert, former TNA guys.
Weird reason, I suppose, to give it. but I'd probably say Albert.
Okay.
For his absolute willingness to reinvent himself.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't work.
Yeah.
With the whole Tensai stuff, but
well, he was Prince Albert. Then he was just A from TNA, so just Albert. Then he was A-Train. Then he was like Tensai, wasn't he?
Yeah. And he managed to get the whole train thing over without running around the ring and saying "choo-choo" like certain people.
Yeah.
But his absolute willingness to just sort of roll with the gimmick and go with it. I feel like if they'd have found the right one, he could have been there. And I just feel like Edge was a big dude, and they kind of always booked him as the big dude, didn't he? Edge. Fucking hell.
I know they look similar, and the Canadian.
Yeah. My head was, I don't know. But Test was always a big dude.
Yeah. And
they booked him as a big dude. Mm-hmm. But the closest they ever got to going, well, let's give him some character, was the whole testicles thing.
Yeah.
Well, they call
it was testicles, yeah.
And I don't know, I just don't know if, again, he's another one who probably couldn't have, I don't think he was able to run with character work as good as Albert. So for me, I'd give it to Albert. I'd say he probably could have been in the main sort of roster, main event scene at some point.
Okay.
He's kind of like a Big Show in that sort of sense where you go, okay, he deserves to be there. He's probably not going to be the best to ever main events, but he deserves to be there, you know?
Okay. So I'm going to disagree with you for the first time. I'll give it the Test. So I think he always had potential, Test. And I think when he obviously had the thing with Stacy Keibler, and then it was like he started to turn heel, and then he had the feud with Big Papa Pump. All that stuff was kind of the making of what he could have been. Then he ended up getting saddled with like the whole we're un-Americans, we're you know,
typical thing. I was like, you're not from around here. Let's give you a gimmick.
And he ended up getting that gimmick. But like as you said, he's a massive dude. He had the best big boot in the business by far. No one's ever got a better big boot than Test.
I think you might need to work on that as a title. Best big boot in the business.
Best big boot in the business. But like he just had that like arrogant look about him when he turned heel and he like shaved his hair off and stuff.
I think he was like, a natural heel without a doubt.
Because like obviously he was meant to be engaged to Stephanie McMahon at one point as like the baby face of...
Wasn't he at the time when Triple H sort of stole her away, like literally drugged her, took her away?
Exactly. Yeah. He was set to marry her then, but when they turned him heel, I feel like that's when it was like, oh, okay, this is what Test could be. And it's interesting you make that, like, obviously a bit of a Freudian slip, but you mentioned Edge. I could see him go down that Edge trajectory of Edge was just a tag team guy. He had the size, he had a bit of charisma, but then he kind of obviously found the rated R stuff and became a main event guy. I think he was just a gimmick away from being okay at Test in the main event.
Yeah, I mean, forgive the way I'm putting it, but do you reckon Edge would have got over as well had it not have been for the whole Lisa situation and some true life stuff being brought to that feud? And
I think it helped
elevating him and essentially birthing the whole rated R gimmick as well.
Yeah, it helped definitely, because he was kind of in that kind of limbo thing of like, I'm just a generic babyface, so he needed something.
Really, for a while, Christian was doing the best work, wasn't he, out of the two of them?
Yeah.
Being the arrogant heel
Captain
one,
Charisma,
like,
Captain Peeps Charisma and all that. Like, he took a step ahead, but then as soon as Edge found that, it was like, oh, okay, that's a main event thing.
This is working.
So for me, that could have been Test, but obviously, unfortunately, that never happened. But yeah, I'm gonna go Test. You're going Albert.
Sticking with Albert.
Okay. Number 6. Let's put a bit of ECW on here, shall we? We've got Raven or Tazz. And I loosely bring these into the Attitude Eras towards the end of the Attitude Era, but still counts, damn it.
I don't have a very strong reason for this. I'm going to go Tazz, purely because this is similar to Vader. I never really got Raven, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, Tazz, I respected the fact that he had this whole Rey Mysterio vibe about him, and he's like he's a little dude, but he's fucking ferocious, you know what I mean? Well, Rey Mysterio didn't. No, but he was like, wasn't it like a Pitbull sort of reference all the time because he was little but fucking aggressive.
Yeah.
And he was like intimidating, like, whereas, you know, Ray went for the whole high flying, I'll manage to, you know, David and Goliath here in some way. Taz just like, I'll just choke you the fuck out. And I don't know, I think there was a place for that to hit the main event, to be honest.
Yeah.
I always really liked Taz, and I know for whatever reason, I actually don't know what retired Taz, to be honest with you, but I know we ended up on commentary quite quite early on in the reality era.
It was quite sudden, wasn't it, as well?
Or
It was just
progression era, whatever you want to call it. And then he was great on commentary. I forgot he wasn't on SmackDown for such a long time with Cole. And I thought they were a great pairing. You know, they were the counterpart to Raw's King and JR.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, he's fucking cool on commentary.
He surprised me so much by how good he was on commentary.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he found his place there, but had he have carried on with the wrestling, I like to think he'd have ended up in the main event at some point. Whatever sidelined him.
I remember his debut at Survivor Series against Kurt Angle, and he came down with that towel on his head. And I'd only ever seen a little bit of like ECW before, so I wasn't really that well versed on him. But I thought, holy shit, he's a killer. Do you know what I mean? So I do love Tazz. I would give it to Raven.
Really?
So for me, I think he should have had Raven's flock in WWE. He should have been that kind of crazy cult leader. He had all these followers.
See, this is probably where I don't, because I didn't ECW all that much, I probably don't get Raven very well. And maybe if I've had more time with the whole ECW scene, I might appreciate that more.
Yeah, well, he was like, he basically built up his own I think it was even in WCW as well. He built up this following of like Billy Kidman and people like that were all part of like his flock. But for me, when he kind of had that slight look change to when he had those like blonde dreads and he wore like the weird kilt skirt thing, I don't know what it was. I was just like, that's a look. That's like I've not seen anything like that before. That's like a main event look.
You never saw a man in a kilt before?
Never saw a man in a kilt.
Roddy wants to have a word with you.
Other than Piper, one of my favourites of all time. But I don't know what it was. He just looked so menacing. Do you know what I mean? Like when they brought him in, it was like, oh, hardcore Raven. He's winning like hardcore championships. That's cool. But when he had that look with like the face paint and stuff, I was like, holy shit, this guy could be main event. It just never happened for him. But for me, you bring back Raven's flock, you make him the cult leader, you give him that look, and he's main event all day. So I would have had to go on that. With Raven.
We're hitting the disagreeing parts now, aren't we?
We are. Started off so well, and it's all falling apart. So let's bring some women into the mix, shall we? Okay. So we've got Ivory or Jacqueline, two fantastic women's wrestlers that just never got the opportunities or chances that they deserved in the Attitude Era. It was all about Sable and Sunny because of like the looks and this, that, and the other. Whereas these two were the two that could actually fucking throw down.
You're right. It's a tough one, this. I think I might go Ivory.
Okay.
Again, I feel like she probably just brought more to the microphone side of things.
Yeah.
And that's no disrespect to Jacqueline, but I'm trying to remember times when she's been great on the mic. And comparatively, I think Ivory just pips her. But it's very close. It's a very close goal, like you say. These were almost quite unsung, really, during the Attitude Era, of people who could actually throw down. But that's not what they wanted in the women's division, sadly, at the time.
No.
But yeah, I don't even care if you disagree with me because I think both massive, great shouts. But I'd probably say Ivory.
Okay. I'm not going to disagree on this one. Okay. I also think Ivory. I think obviously she came from Glow, so she was one of probably the best women's wrestlers they had on the roster like that whole time. So fantastic in the ring, but also she killed it as part of Right to Censor. Do
you know what? Yeah, fair point.
She was so good.
Like that, I think where like that needs a mention of its own because that's where you go. Like mic skills right there.
Yeah,
character right there.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, she won like the women. Like both of them were former women's champions. I know Ivory won it while she was in Right to Censor as well. But I just feel like that could have gone places even more if given that time. Like she played that heel so well, but she could have also quite easily transitioned back into a face as well and like, kept that run going for a long period of time.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, they just didn't keep her around. So Ivory for me is one of the unsung heroes of like the women's division during that time. I think she was so talented and just never got a fair shake.
There you go. So we actually agree on one. We're going back to the agreement.
Back on the same page. And then we've got Godfather versus Dude Love. So two guys with kind of very, I don't know what the word is, very interesting gimmicks, if you will, very colourful gimmicks.
Okay, I'll give you my mindset on this because otherwise it's just dead air. I want to say Godfather, but I'm trying to think like Godfather. I don't know if it would have been a main event gimmick, and then outside of the Godfather gimmick, you go, would he have found a main event gimmick for him? But then you look at like Mick Foley and go, you know what? He was so out there that he managed to get Mankind in main event matches. So like you go, well, he probably could have got any crazy gimmick where it needed to be. Do you know what I mean? And he was just willing to punish himself that much that he'd have got where he needed to go. So I'm like, can I say anything other than Mick Foley here? Or am I saying Mick Foley generally?
Well, I mean, it's Dude Love. So
yeah, do I have to specifically say Dude Love?
Well, it's a tricky one because we've made cases for how people, if they had a gimmick change, so it's kind of like we know that he's had other gimmicks.
If he had a gimmick change from Dude Love to maybe, I don't know, a masked character of some sort. No, I get what you're saying. Yeah. But I think Mick Foley, I would probably have to say Mick Foley, right? But I don't know, there's just something about the Godfather I feel like, I don't know what gimmick it would have took, but because I don't think the Godfather would have been a main event.
No.
But I feel like he would have.
Yeah.
That sounds really stupid when I say it and you can't see the pictures. I feel like if he changed the gimmick from the Godfather, not to like the Godfather or one of the others, right? If he found the right gimmick for a main event push, I feel like, yeah, he definitely could have. He had everything about him where he could have been a main event dude.
It's hard, isn't it?
It is. You know what? Yeah, I'm going to say Godfather.
Really?
I'm going to go for it, yeah.
So for me, I agree. Godfather was never going to be a main event, and Godfather was terrible. And as he said, again, I don't want to put bias on it, but again, another guest of the show, but he said he hated that gimmick, didn't he? For me, I would have loved to see Papa Shango in the modern era.
Yes, that would have been. Again, I think we're probably quite heavily leaning towards like you want that sort of intimidating, scary, mysterious kind of vibe.
Because like the dude's like 6'7", 6'8". He's not, you know what I mean? He's no slouch. He's a powerful fucking guy.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's a shame to stifle his charisma in that way. But putting him back to Papa Shango could have been great or could have been awful, depending on how they did it. Could have been like Boogeyman kind of thing. Or it could have been like, I don't know, Undertaker levels, you know what I mean? With such like mystery. Because if you think about it, Taker was still Taker for a long period of time. I know they went the American Badass route, but they still came back to Taker and it was fine. They still had the Boogeyman. There were still elements of supernatural. So if you would have done something...
They even, like, because they sort of kayfabe wrote how the Undertaker became the Undertaker again, didn't they? Because didn't Kane bury him alive?
Yeah.
And that's what turned him back into the actual Undertaker.
So maybe like Godfather was like, maybe he got screwed to death by the hose. And then he just
wakes up out of the hospital bed.
He woke up. That's, like they had to use voodoo magic to bring him back, and then he is Papa Shango. But yeah, it sounds so stupid to pick anyone other than Mick Foley for what he did as Mankind, as Cactus Jack, and just as Mick Foley. But like, I do feel like it was Godfather should have been, because the gimmick, times changed, and he couldn't do that gimmick anymore. So he just kind of just fell by the wayside. But he should have, you know what I mean? If they would have said, you know what, let's bring Papa Shango back, that could have been the thing that took him up. Because you look at the likes of like Bradshaw, and then he becomes JBL. I was like, that's a main event gimmick. Yeah, that's all you need.
And look what JBL did with that. You know? Yeah, but I don't know. I almost kind of just out of sheer hope that I reckon if they'd have given the right thing, they could have done that.
Yeah, I think so. It's a shame
because my choice, damn it.
he's looked back on us like, oh, that funny guy and all that, and he loved his time when he was doing it. But yeah, I definitely think a less hokey Papa Shango, like a darker Papa Shango, that was the shit. That could have been it. Which takes us to Battle of the Big Men, Big Show or Kane.
Kane.
Okay, didn't take that much deliberating.
No, I feel like Big Show. I mean, it's kind of, in a way, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because they both sort of got the main event push, but not in the Attitude Era. And I don't know even know if you'd class it as a main event push. They got the top title in the company, both of them. But there's just always something about Big Show that I don't know if how do I put this? I wouldn't want him to like be mad at me, but he's just such a naturally sort of friendly guy that it's hard to give him any other gimmick than the big, friendly, goofy guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even when he's flip-flopped that much because he can't stay heel that long because it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right? He's just a nice dude.
Yeah. The thing is, when they brought him into WCW, it was like Andre the Giant's son. Like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
When they brought him to WWE, it's like Paul White, and then it was like the Big Show. He was kind of like a big guy.
Yeah.
He's never really had that gimmick, but I don't think there was a gimmick he could have really given him that would have done it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's intimidating size and stature. But I don't know, there's just something always about him where it just never, like, if you were stood in front of him and you were like that, you'd probably go, okay, that's quite intimidating. But like when you're watching him on screen, he just never come across as intimidating.
No.
And I don't know. I don't think he could have ever got there as a person, because I just don't think it's. To be honest, I've made a similar shout with Bailey when I was like, Bailey will never be a heel because she's just too naturally happy and friendly.
Yeah,
look how he proved me the fuck wrong.
Yeah,
but Paul White's never proved me wrong.
No,
I've never seen Big Show come out like and start ragging people around the ring and actually found him intimidating.
Yeah,
he's the big guy.
Yeah,
not the Big Show. The big guy's Ryback. Sorry. But he's just a big dude, and I don't know. There's just always something that kind of, as a fan, always stopped me from, like, even when they were trying to make him an intimidating heel, it just never sold it to me.
No.
And I feel because of that, Kane's the natural main event guy out of the two of them right here.
Yeah.
So I'd have to push Kane.
Yeah.
Not Glenn Jacobs.
I'd have to agree. I think it's still.
Can I clarify that Kane right there?
Well,
not unmasked. Let's talk about our feelings, Kane.
No,
that one.
That's what I was going to say. Is that I think you touched on it before. They kind of went from this like into like a cartoony comedy thing, didn't he? And it was like gimmicks like Kane ultimately suffered. Like, he was cool, some of the stuff he did, like where he was like imitating Hogan and The Rock and doing a Kane Rooney and his 10,000 Canaanites and all that. It was funny stuff. But like after they basically they did that didn't work. They couldn't go back to him being a menace again, so they were just like, well, the way to do that is to take his mask off and make him like a horrible, movie villain with coinciding with this movie release. They should have never messed with him as much as they did. I feel like I'm saying this to all the gimmicks, but it should have went darker.
I don't mind when they did the initial change and they give him the half mask. I understood that from a practical point of view, more comfortable for the wrestler, right? So I'm like, cool, stick with that. And to be fair, the facial hair and the mask, that look kind of worked. But then when they got rid of the mask and he was just, no offense, Glenn, just an ugly bald dude, right? It became a lot less intimidating. Yeah. And again, if I met him in a dark alley and he wanted to kick me ass, I probably wouldn't feel that way. It became when you're watching him on screen from the comfort of your home, you go, "Hey, just a big." He
became more like Uncle Fester, didn't he? Than anything else.
I like that. Yeah, proper Fester vibes.
But like for me, and I get why they did it, as you say, but he should never have even done the half mat. The whole point is his face was meant to be fucking so disfigured and terrifying, and he's meant to be full of rage as a result of that. Yeah. So when you start going, well, we'll cut off this bit, and then the later Kane where they fucking wore a fucking boiler mask or whatever, it's like. And like the weird, just all of it was awful.
Well, yeah, I think that was a mistake as well when they wanted to revisit the mask, and you go, that doesn't make sense now, does it?
Yeah, like what's he wearing it for now?
Yeah. Just because he likes the way it feels on his skin.
Yeah. So for me, they should never have changed the mask. Like they could have changed the outfit or whatever a little bit. Like I didn't hate the little like vest thing that he wore and things, but I don't know. For me, they should have just made it darker and darker when they kind of went more colourful and silly. Yeah. That's what ruined it. So they should have been like Ministry of Darkness Undertaker, but as Kane. Like even if they would have got rid of the fucking red or something, just had it be proper dark. Like that would have been like, ooh.
Okay.
Dark.
And now we just got to rest our hopes on Blue Kane and hope they don't ruin that.
Exactly. But like, I mean, even like I'm trying to. People will probably hate me for making this comparison, but look at like Luchasaurus. That's like Kane in reverse. He was like this jokey, like, I'm Luchasaurus, and now he's like, fuck it, he looks like a badass, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's what they shouldn't have done. They should have just full in on the badass side of things. So, should have. But yeah, it has to be Kane for me.
Cool, we agree on this one.
We do. So, Ken Shamrock, Steve Blackman, two legitimate tough men, badasses. Ken Shamrock, former UFC champion, and Steve Blackman, a former, mixed martial artist.
It's difficult. Like, they both obviously legitimate badasses, but I don't know if either of them really had it in the personality front.
No, he didn't at all.
So, what do you do there? I'll probably go Shamrock with maybe some sort of mouthpiece.
Okay, like a gum shield.
Yeah. So you don't know what he's saying, so it could be good, could be gold. We just don't know, can't understand it. No, we had like a manager talking for him. Let's say you put Shamrock and Heyman.
Yeah. Do you know what? I love that you went there because that's where I was hoping this would go. So just goes to show.
And I don't even know why I'm leaning towards Shamrock. I'm just kind of looking and going, I suppose the look for WWE was probably more Shamrock than it was Blackman. But again, they're both badasses and they both just needed that help to get over. And I don't know, I did just something about Shamrock. I think that maybe I'm making like a comparison in my head going, he's kind of Brock-esque with the UFC stuff. So put him with Heyman, gold. Maybe that's what I'm doing. But I'm probably going to say Shamrock, but I don't really have a very solid reason for that. I just think they both kind of lacked in the same department, so you can't really pick one over the other.
Yeah.
You know?
I might go Blackman, you know.
Okay.
But I agree. Like, as I said, I'm glad you went on to the topic, is they needed a mouthpiece. Definitely. Like, Blackman...
Well, I've already bagged Paul, so you put him with him.
Who the fuck would I put him with? It'd have to be Paul. It'd have to be Paul, wouldn't it? Let's be honest. Who else could you put them with? It wouldn't be like Jim Cornette or someone.
Mouth of the South.
It just wouldn't work. But they should have just basically never had him speak. Like, they should have, he had this just kind of... He just looked a bit boring, Steve Blackman. Yeah. So if they would have just given him a couple of tweaks, maybe slightly different hairstyle, changed up his ring attire and stuff.
I think that might be... Now you mention it, that might be what's kind of leaning me towards Shamrock. I think he probably, in terms of facial expression, he looked more intense.
Yeah, like the thing with Shamrock is he was a legit badass, but he just would scream, and that was it. You know what I mean? That's all he could do. And I feel like
at least a manly scream, or
not really, it's just like a but you put him with a mouthpiece, and I don't think he changes that much. It's just Shamrock, but now someone else can talk for him. I don't think he had anything else to do or be. Whereas Steve Blackman was a legit badass, but just wasn't packaged in the right way. Like, he'd come down doing all these punches and kickers and nunchucks. He should have just come down and fucking wrecked people, and just being like, you do not want to fuck with Steve Blackman. So I don't know. I feel like he's one of the most underutilized people. I think Steve Blackman. I so wish they would have found a way to get his badassery over, if you will, because he was legit. And I don't know what it is about Shamrock. It just, I think his ceiling was where he got.
It's a shame though. It's a difficult choice for the wrong reasons.
Yeah,
really, this isn't it? Because it's not like it's a difficult choice. They're both great. It's like difficult choice. They both kind of shit at the same thing.
Yeah, I feel like Blackman had more potential. I think Shamrock got to where he was going to get. He was never going to be main events or anything like that. He was just that guy.
I get you. I'll stick with Shamrock anyway because that was the choice I made. But
okay, I'll go Blackman.
I'll lock my choice in before we had this discussion, so it is what it is.
Co-main event: Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho.
So it has to be Attitude Era versions of them, yeah?
And well, I mean, yeah, but obviously we're kind of saying, but then if you wanted to push them a certain way or tweak them or change them.
No, I'm just saying, because this is difficult because they are both main event dudes.
Yeah. To be fair, you could be like, I think Jericho as the list gimmick in the Attitude Era. You know what I mean? I'd be like, that's what I would have pushed.
But if I avoid that for a second, just go, Jericho, was probably leaps and bounds ahead of Kurt in terms of character work, even in the Attitude Era. So if I had to make a choice now, of just the Attitude Era, I would push Jericho. Kurt really proved his worth for me. You know, I was like, dance for me, Kurt. Kurt really proved his worth and what he was capable of in terms of character work for me during Ruthless Aggression or Reality Era, or the post Attitude Era.
Yeah.
Whatever. Is it Reality or Ruthless Aggression? I can't remember which
it was Ruthless Aggression, wasn't it next?
His work with John Cena and stuff like that, for instance, I thought, and his work with Brock Lesnar, and all his basically holding SmackDown on his fucking shoulders, was like, that's main event Kurt right there.
Yeah.
Right? So it's difficult. It's a really difficult thing to pick one over the other because they're both legends.
Well, to be fair to Kurt, he was the WWE champion in a year after he joined. So it wasn't like he had a lot of time to just cruise anyway. So realistically, we're talking he kind of was straight into main event.
Yeah.
In the Attitude Era after a year.
But yeah.
Because controversially, I'll give you my kind of counter argument. Jericho was brought in as this big deal, the Millennium Man, Y2J, and all that kind of stuff, and he arrived, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's Jericho," and he did fuck all.
And he immediately go into a feud with The Rock.
Well, so he interrupted The Rock, and then The Rock basically beat him. And then he was like, "Well, I'm going to be Intercontinental Champion and European Champion," and he just didn't get over.
Was the feud as brief as The Rock beat him?
Yeah, I don't think they did anything major.
I could have sworn they had maybe I'm just conflating different parts of the attitude.
But it actually took Jericho quite a while to get over, and even when he became the first undisputed champ, beating The Rock and Stone Cold on the same night, he still wasn't amazing. Jericho got better with time.
They actually still weren't big on him either, because they didn't they deliberately keep him with both separate belts because they wanted the new unified belt to be on someone else.
Oh, really?
They didn't want him associated. I could be lying about this. I could be wrong.
No,
I feel like I read somewhere that they didn't want him to be associated with the Universal Belt.
Right.
So he kept the 2 titles, and then he had to drop the 2 titles, and then was it Triple H? Didn't go straight to Brock, did it?
Yeah, I think it might be Triple H.
Yeah. But it was essentially I'm going to say Triple H. I'm sure it was Triple H who
it was WrestleMania, wasn't
it? It was Triple H who got the unified new belt because they didn't want the association with Jericho.
Yeah.
Which, not necessarily in a really bad way, but they wanted it Triple H, you got the new belt.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of approach.
Yeah.
Which was a bit shitty, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But to me, that's he didn't really. I think he didn't get over in the politics sense. That obviously he's a long stay and he knows the business, and he's a big fucking star now, and he's had a on and off again relationship with WWE for so long. But I think it took him a while to get over on the sort of backstage politics side as well.
Yeah, really. Definitely. And if you think of Jericho, you think of some of your favourite moments. They're probably more towards the mid to end of his WWE run.
Mm.
So I feel like in the Attitude Era, he kind of wasn't all that.
Well, going to your points, if you had Jericho from his most recent run with WWE with the list and the Festival of Friendship and all that, yeah, if you put him in the Attitude Era, he probably would have flew, wouldn't he? To be fair, I want to say Jericho, Kurt, friend of the show, he's been on the show. Jericho hasn't, but Kurt's an absolute. You just made this choice too hard, but I'm going to say Jericho.
Just wait till the next one, and the final one. Yeah, so I'm going to go with Angle.
Okay.
I just think
I respect his.
He was thrown into the deep end, but it was he almost had to carry the show, because when Rock and Austin left, who did he? You know what I mean? They had Triple H. Then it was either Jericho or Angle, and I feel like Angle stepped up more than Jericho did. But he was kind of Brock Lesnar before he was Brock Lesnar, a legitimate fucking Olympic gold medalist, badass. So even if his charisma didn't catch up for a little bit, he still felt more at home in the main event scene to me. So yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because obviously there is those biases of well, fucking hell, we love Kurt, he's Kurt. What a cool guy he is. And
he is a cool guy.
I don't think Jericho. I think Jericho needed more time to really start to get to grips with these gimmicks and stuff. He was great at what he did, but I don't think he was main event when he was main event in the WWE.
Okay.
Whereas I think Kurt Angle came in and he was a bit oh god, he's a goofball, this guy. But so quickly he got over and became legit, and it was
You see that other clip where Kurt was adamant that he wouldn't get booed?
Yeah. That's so funny though, isn't it? Because even Logan Paul, I saw some stuff with him and he was he was gutted, he was furious that people were booing him. I don't understand, why is everyone booing me?
He must have known he was unlikable.
Well, apparently not. And then and now he's on about how he's really leaning into it and he loves the fact he gets booed. But he couldn't believe everyone booed him. It was
I suppose it must be a juxtaposition for you when if you go out thinking you're going to be the good guy,
yeah,
and it doesn't, it's not getting what you expect, is it? So because I often think it'd be fun to be the heel, but I suppose if you don't go out being the heel and everyone's booing you, you're I've done something wrong here.
Yeah.
So I get why that'd throw you off, but I am very surprised that Logan Paul did not expect to be booed.
Yeah. Well, there you go. It goes to show how out of touch you could be, I suppose. But yeah, I'm gonna go Kurt Angle. You're gonna go Chris Jericho.
Jericho.
Which takes us to the main event, Anthony.
Is this the last one?
Last one.
Okay.
Stone Cold or The Rock?
Fuck's sake, Carl. Okay.
It has to be these two.
You know what? I'm just going to go for it straight out the gate. I'm going to say Stone Cold.
Okay.
Stone Cold sadly had his career cut short. The Rock had a fairly short career by choice, and people always make it sound like it was so much longer, but it actually wasn't that long a wrestling career in the grand scheme.
No.
Stone Cold, I think he really put the work in. I think, to be honest, his match with Brett alone, the birth of Stone Cold, is enough for me to say it should be Stone Cold. And that is no disrespect to The Rock. He's an absolute legend, but let's be honest, Rock is more famous for not being in WWE than being in WWE at this point.
Yeah.
And it obviously definitely was a main event star, but Stone Cold was it. Stone Cold was it in the Attitude Era, and I'm gutted for him. He never got a longer career out of it. Safety first and all that, but
I've got to say, I agree. It has to be Stone Cold saved WWE.
He fucking did.
Like, if it wasn't for Stone Cold, NWO that's it. It was WWE was dead, right?
Yeah.
Austin was the Attitude Era. Like, if you didn't have Austin, The Rock, there's no way The Rock was doing those things with Vince and having those segments and really getting all those eyeballs. He just wasn't. There's no way he was. I think as well, The Rock kind of came into it long after the foundation that Stone Cold had laid. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. The Rock was kind of part of the nation, and
he strolled down the road that Austin built.
Yeah. But like, you know, Austin found this, like, and don't get me wrong, like, Rock was so fucking charismatic and likable and got over so much.
Oh yeah, of course.
Towards the end of his career, him and Austin were like neck and neck. But peak Attitude Era, there's no way The Rock was doing what Austin did. Yeah.
And this is where I find The Rock fascinating for that reason, because he was so charismatic that people remember him so well from WWE. You remember him as The Rock, as a wrestler. I mean, he's I think it's only recently he's not credited as The Rock in movies, for instance. But you remember The Rock so much. But if you actually look at some of his career, it wasn't that long.
No, not at all.
It really wasn't that long.
He was there from like 96 as Rocky Balboa to like 2001. Maybe 2002 at a push. Do you know what I mean? Whereas Austin was in the whole wrestling bit, like WCW, ECW.
He was Hollywood Blondes, wasn't
he? Yeah, so he's back in WCW, God knows when. Like, he came into WWE as like 95, 94.
Did he do the ringmaster, or was he just trying to put it on him?
Yeah, he was ringmaster for a bit. And then obviously he kind of found his way towards what he was. But
I've got to throw him a bit of love for the fact that Stone Cold is a British name, isn't it? It's a British gimmick.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, so.
But yeah, like you can't do like a who do you push or flush about the Attitude Era and not have Austin go over everybody, because he was the Attitude Era.
Austin is the Attitude Era. Yeah, you're totally right. I'm glad we agreed on this one. Yeah. Like, and I know so many people have a lot of love for The Rock, but like, yeah. Austin.
I mean, us included, right? Like,
of course.
The Rock, but it's like, and I know people would pick him over Austin for certain reasons, but you can't deny
when
what Austin did.
We're playing the game of push or flush for the Attitude Era. Yeah, we're not playing like who had the better mic skills and stuff like that, which would still be a tough call, but you might pick The Rock on that one. Yeah. But we're talking push or flush, and it's like you say, it's got to be Austin all day.
Has to be Austin.
Fucking damn right.
All day. So yeah, that was our Attitude Era edition of Push or Flush. As always, we are fascinated to know whether you would pick the same as us. Was there people that wasn't even on this list that you would have liked to see us talk about?
Wildcards,
who would you have liked to see us make that decision on? But yeah, let us know in the comments what you think. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree? We love hearing all your comments and feedback. If you are watching this, give it a big fat like. If you're not subbed already, hit subscribe. And drop us a comment, as we say, let us know. If you're listening to this, make sure you rate us 5 stars. Make sure you follow us on whatever podcast platform you listen to. And yeah, download the show. And let us know on socials as well what you think. Obviously, we every time we put a show up, we do a little social post saying we've put a show up. So comment on that and let us know what you think. But yeah.
All that fun-filled segment, all that wonderful stuff.
Chosen by our lovely Instagram followers as well. So if you want to get involved and help us pick segments sometimes.
And you know what? While we're talking about our socials and our Instagram followers, we've got a lovely SummerSlam tournament at the moment, haven't we?
Yes, we do. So if you're watching this right now, it'll still be on. So head to our stories, and we're going to crown the greatest SummerSlam of all time.
Yes, we are.
So make sure you get involved in that. A big shout out to the Prediction Pals on Instagram. If you're not joined already, come and join. A nice little fun space for all wrestling fans to chat about all things.
Indeed.
And obviously take part in our monthly prediction series. And also shout out to our friends, the Fantasy Faction. So run by Cheap Hot Wrestling, great guys.
Yeah. So they've put a lot of work into the sort of the logistics of the fantasy draft and the point scoring system. It works really well. It's a lot of fun. Are we still winning at the moment?
Second place now.
We're second place at the moment.
The call-up took over.
So we got a little bit battered in the last one, but we're doing well this time, so
makes a change.
You never know.
But yeah, so I absolutely love the stuff they do, and obviously there's the Faction Fam that you can obviously join.
Yeah.
And
I think it's a great community to join again, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're even obviously getting guests on their show as well from that, which I think is a cool idea.
Yeah, really cool idea. In fact, we've been on there once.
We were on there. Check ours out on theirs as well. So yeah, lots of things to do, lots of things to follow, lots of things to see, and we will see you on the next one.